Our 12:15 meeting is now in session. Jack Herrig will do our invocation. Jack?
Well, as Rotarians, we've gathered together as brothers and sisters of many faiths and to celebrate. It's been a season of celebration, even with COVID. Islamic sisters celebrated the birth of the prophet in October. Our Jewish brethren are celebrating Hanukkah now in the day of Hanukkah, celebrating the rededication of the second temple. For Christians, it's Advent in the liturgical year, and it is a celebration of the nativity of Christ at Christmas and the return and the second coming. Our Hispanic brothers and sisters have a lot of various celebrations in Mexico. They're celebrating between the 16th and the 24th, Las Patas. Kwanzaa will be observed from the 26th of December to January 1st for our African American culture. And as we celebrate all of these things, this is the second day of V-Day. Vaccinations have begun. We began a journey to victory in a war against an unseen enemy, COVID-19. We are now on the attack to vanquish the enemy. Our journey is fraught with risk as we gather in this season of hope, love, and joy. Let us not drop our guard. Let us remain diligent, remain respectful of our foe. May we honor and be grateful to the one and only Creator who has provided us with the wisdom and knowledge to defeat COVID. Promise of return to a new normal. Amen.
Dr. Rob, you're muted.
I have to put $10 in the kitty, I guess. I'll start over again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test.
Is it the truth?
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right, thank you, everybody. And welcome to our holiday party. We'll be soon turning this over to our guests from Stan Hywet, who will give us a tour. In the front end, I didn't see Connor Jarvis on yet, but I will introduce here. Oh, Connor, there we have a guest. Dan O'Connor has a guest.
Okay. You probably didn't know I was here because I was quiet for once. So yes, but Dan, go ahead. Absolutely. Please introduce your guest.
Sure. I have Ryan McCauley here. You can raise your hand, Ryan, if you want. And he's an old friend. He's a young friend, actually. His father and I worked together at Merrill Lynch. He just moved back in the area, and he's interested in Rotary, as his father and brother were very interested in Hudson Rotary. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, Dan.
I believe there's another guest. There's another guest also, Connor.
Yeah, Dr. Doug, go ahead.
My wife Carol is also on the call, but she's at home with the camera off because the critters are crawling on top of her.
Yeah.
But she usually comes to the Christmas parties, so she's coming in via Zoom.
All right, welcome, Carol.
And Andy Herrig as well is with us, but he just got up from his chair.
Okay. Andy, welcome. And then, of course, our Stan Hywet guests. Anyone else we're missing then? Thank you for helping me search the screen, Cheryl, Dr. Rob. Claudine.
Yes, I'm happy to be a guest today to join you for this celebration. So I'm very happy to see all of you and the beautiful costume. So Merry Christmas to all.
Yes, we're happy to have you back, Claudine. Great to see you. All right. Anyone else we're missing? I believe that might be it, though. Andy, you were welcomed a moment ago or introduced. I see you're back in front of the screen now. Welcome, Andy Herrig. I believe that's it then, Dr. Rob.
Andy's our guest.
Thank you, Connor. Well, we were to have an induction today, but unfortunately, our inductee was otherwise tied up and was not able to join us. So we'll get him rescheduled in the new year. And I would want to make sure that any of you who have your Zoom tops on, make sure your camera's on. So there may be some secret Santa judges looking around here. So keep an eye out. I see a lot of good festive light bulbs and special effects of Home Alone. And so we got some good stuff going on there. Great creative backgrounds. Oh, that's a great little hat there. So we're having fun with that. I want to remind folks that there will not be a meeting on the 22nd of December or the 29th of December, and we will reconvene January 5th with Greg Marvis, Akron Summit Convention and Visitor Bureau head. So we'll make a note of that and make sure that that you come on in when we start back up January 5th. So today, we want to see who's happy, Jack Herrig. Can you start us off? Jack, you may be muted. Jack, I don't want to steal your thunder because I know what you're happy about. Jack, you're muted. You're muted, Jack. There you go, Jack.
I sent 66 happy dollars out to Rotary Camp today. Friday is our 66th wedding anniversary. As of probably yesterday, we would have been headed towards Long Island, New York. We eloped and Aunt had a wedding for us. My parents and some friends joined us. Friends at General Tire gave us dinner at the Stork Club, and we've just had a great time. We at the reception, Bull was there, the Admiral, Julia Macy, and Julia Macy. It was quite an event for young kids that didn't know where they were going.
Well, for not knowing where you were going, you sure got there. Congratulations. That's awesome. Inspiring. Who else is happy? Let me see. I'll scan and see who's happy. Put your hand up. Ah, Sam Lupica's happy.
All right, I'll put $9 in since my younger daughter is turning 9 today. So.
Ah, well, happy birthday to her. All right. Who else do we have here? I'm surfing the screen.
Hey, Dr. Rob, this is Dave. I'm happy.
All right, Dave.
Sorry, I got kicked off of my computer, so I had to go to my phone. So first of all, can everybody hear me?
Dave, we heard
Breaking
you
up a little bit.
Can you guys?
Dave.
Oh, yes. We'll come back to me.
Okay, Dave. Thanks. We're glad you're happy. You keep us in suspense. All right. Who else do
All
we
right.
have
Sorry.
with
Can you
that?
hear me now?
Yes.
Wait, yes, you can hear. I apologize, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So first of all, because of that debacle, I will give $5 happy dollars. First of all, part of it is I need to explain for those of you that I'm reading Pat's comments. For those of you that may not realize, I'm wearing a Clark W. Griswold Blackhawks jersey from the movie, so that is my holiday attire right now. So, and I don't know if you can see me because I can't see myself right now, but the back of it says Griswold. So there you go. For those of you that are voting. And then the rest of the happy dollars, goes towards raffle tickets for the Chili Open. So just wanted to let you know that, obviously we are still far away from our goal of $60,000 in raffle ticket sales. It's extremely important that as Rotarians, we turn in our money and sell our tickets, sell more than our tickets. We just need huge support because it's going to look a little bit different this year, and we don't know how many we're going to sell day of. So let's try to make it a less stressful Chili Open and get your raffle tickets in and push everybody to chiliopen.net to buy tickets. I had a fun video shoot with Jerry at the Vanderveer on Friday. So there's going to be a little promo coming out that we're going to be sharing through social media. So I'm pretty excited. But raffle tickets. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. And I'll let you know that at work, instead of buying an obligatory bottle of wine for everybody, I gave them a card with a raffle ticket in it. So I was able to have a win-win there. And all the Christmas stockings will be related to, from a distance this year, we'll have a raffle ticket or two in. So that's one suggestion that you might want to take Dave's ideas. And I
Dr.
see.
Rob,
Yes, thank you very much.
Dr. Rob, Cindy Kane has happy dollars.
All right, Cindy. Cindy.
Hello.
Oh, we lost you. You got muted again. Did you touch your screen?
What's going on?
Now we got you.
Okay. Hello, fellow Rotarians. I brought the Grinch family with me in the background. Hope you notice. I am going to copy off of Dr. Rob. I don't know if you've heard, but it's been an awesome year in real estate in spite of COVID. So I've decided that instead of selling raffle tickets, I'm going to give a raffle ticket to every one of my clients for this year. So Dave Miller, there's $1,200 for your cause. And I'm so excited. I think it's a great way to put something forward to them. And I'm so excited that I have 60 chances for one of my clients to be the winner.
Very exciting. Thank you
Cindy.
for leading the way. Anybody else happy? Steve Bowie's happy.
Yes, I have 3 happy dollars. And my first one is for you, Dr. Rob. I mean, you are making us look good in representing Scotland there with your cummerbund styling. And the second one, actually, Pat O'Neill, my goodness, you look great in that jacket. And so I think with you and Dr. Rob, you're maintaining some of the respectability and class of this club. So thank you guys for styling out today. And the third one is actually for David Miller. A couple of years ago, he went through a really brutal health crisis, and we almost lost him. And but if you know David to some degree, you know that he absolutely loves bourbon. And so this happy dollar, Dave, is for you for bourbon.
That's excellent. All right. Well, I will finish up.
Dr. Rob, Claudine is happy.
Oh, Claudine.
Oh, thanks, Pat. Didn't see that.
As is
Thank
Doug
you.
House Connect.
Dr.
Thank
Doug,
you,
man, I'm
yes.
slacking today.
Okay, always happy. So I have $5 happy today. Congratulations for Jack and Vivian. This is just wonderful. Also, congratulations. I saw this on the newsletter to Judy Brander for our nomination as a future district governor. Also, I'm happy because Saturday is going to be a big day for me. I'm presenting a new global grant for Ukraine to my new club. And also the same day, I have a celebration, Christmas celebration with Ukraine. So you are all invited. The Zoom link will be on the newsletter sent to Mrs. Kloss. And I wanted to let you know that we are going to finalize the project of container of wheelchairs. So I have one more person who is giving a check, and I will ask the foundation to send the check to the wheelchair foundation. So the container will be able to go to Ukraine. And thank you all for your participation.
Thank you, Claudine.
Thank you, Claudine.
Dr. Doug.
Yeah, I'll throw in 10 happy dollars. Two things. One is, as I said, Carol usually joins me at the holiday party, so I'm glad she's able to do that Zooming in. And the holiday party always seems to end up on the same day as grades go in. So usually I have to dash out of the party and run back to the office to turn in grades. So I can do that here in the office. And I'll just leave it to your imagination whether I'm Santa or Grinch this year.
Okay.
Doug, you've had the busiest retirement of anyone I know.
Hey, Jim Redmond's happy.
All right, Jim Redmond. How happy is Jim Redmond?
Jim Redmond has 10 happy dollars because we are 10 days away from Christmas. And I'm sporting my little Chili Open Save the Date card, as everybody can see, who has a little zoomer right here. And I wanted to remind everybody, after all that exciting news about raffle ticket ideas, that since we're not going to be talking to each other maybe till next year, I wanted to remind everybody about the silent auction. And for the first time ever, we're actually talking about doing an oral auction. And details will be forthcoming, but I wanted to let everybody know I'm working on a package where Ben Curtis, who is the British Open champion, he lives in Kent, may come out and play golf with 4 people at Firestone. So for instance, if I can put that package together, and if we do an oral auction on February 6th of some degree, you can imagine we might raise as much as $5,000 because there's crazy people out there that want to play golf with Ben Curtis. So I want everybody, while they have the next few weeks off, to think about interesting oral auction ideas, because we might need your help in January putting that together. And that's making me very happy. So happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, at this time, I think we need to switch over. I'm glad there's so much happiness. I will throw in my 10 happy dollars because I love to see the fact that Chili Open is still going strong and people are enthusiastic about alternative ways to continue to raise money for a phenomenal cause. And that my dad left me his McGregor plaid tartan bow tie and cummerbund. And I thought somebody thought that was going to be a kilt. But since it's a Zoom top, you don't have to see whether I have my legs showing. Okay, so at this point, I would like to turn this over to our guest from Stan Hywet. During this presentation, if you have a question in real time, chat through the chat privately to Chloe, and she will make sure that, or I'm sorry, private chat to Julie, because Julie Frey is going to be taking us on our tour. Julie, do you want to take it away?
No, actually, to Chloe was correct.
Okay, text to Chloe, but Julie's going to take it away. Thank you, Cheryl.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Julie Frey. I'm the curator here at Stan Hywet Hall Gardens. I did recognize a few familiar faces. I think some of you are members or have at least attended events, and we appreciate all your support. Since this is virtual, we can't really do a poll. I'll assume most of you have been to Stan Hywet before, but if you haven't, you still have time to come before the end of the year. You can check our website, stanhywet.org, for daytime hours, as well as if you're interested in coming for our Deck the Hall program, which starts at 5 o'clock now, 7 days a week through the end of the month, with the exception of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. So we're going to do a little walk and talk. I want to first give a shout out to my crew that's behind the camera. So I have Mike, Chloe, and Tyler that are helping to support me to do this because it takes a village. If there's any glitches or if we freeze it all, please just Cheryl will type into the chat and let us know. We don't have the strongest Wi-Fi connection in our 100-plus-year-old house, but we mapped it out yesterday. We did practice, so we'll see how it goes. So welcome, everyone. Behind me is our portrait of F.A. Seiberling, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, being the builder of Stan Hywet Hall Gardens with his wife, Gertrude. F.A. co-founded the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company in 1898 with his brother, Charlie. They ran that company until 1921, and then 6 months after leaving, stepping down from their positions at Goodyear, founded their second rubber company, the Seiberling Rubber Company, which was located in Barberton. That actually remained under family management until 1968. And then was eventually bought out by the Firestone Rubber Company in, I want to say, sometime in the mid to late 70s. So we're standing in the Tower Landing. Stan Hywet Hall, the family actually moved in right around this time in 1915, December of 1915. They broke ground on Stan Hywet in January of 1912, so they were just shy of taking 4 years to complete Stan Hywet. This was the family's dream home. F.A. and Gertrude had 7 children, 6 of whom lived to adulthood. By the time they considered constructing Stan Hywet, most of their children were older teenagers, even adults. Only their youngest son, Franklin, who was 7, was the only one that really grew up here. So when building Stan Hywet or talking about the concept of Stan Hywet, F.A. of course wanted a very large house, and many of his own children questioned this decision because they thought, well, Dad, we're going to be gone, or we're already gone, and why do you want this huge house? And he really had 2 very specific reasons. One was, as he told his children, you're all going to get married, have children of your own, and I want a place where you can all come back and celebrate the holidays or have a place to have, family traditions. Family was very important to not only F.A., but all of the Seiberlings. They used this expression of stick-togetherness. That was something they wrote about in letters. So continuing those family ties and traditions was very important to them. When he was growing up, his parents' house was always the epicenter of Christmas celebrations, other holiday traditions, and they had both passed away at this point. So F.A. wanted to continue that here at Stan Hywet. So Stan Hywet was always the site of Christmas celebrations for the Seiberlings. F.A. was one of 9 siblings, most of whom stayed here in Akron, got married, had children of their own. Those children eventually married, had children of their own. So the Christmas celebrations by the 1940s and 50s got quite large, up to 80 and 90 people Stan Hywet was hosting dinner for by those later decades. The second reason for building such a large home is kind of personified in the motto that's over the entryway of the house, non nobis solum. It means not for us alone. So the Seiberlings very deliberately chose that phrase in 1915 when they were completing construction on the house to signify kind of how they felt about their house and their place in the Akron community. And Stan Hywet very much was open to the community. They were very philanthropic. Unlike a lot of industrialists of their generation, they didn't collect art and books in the same way. They weren't kind of putting their money into exclusive travel opportunities or, car collections. They put all their money back into the city of Akron. They were very community minded. Akron was the largest growing city between 1910 and 1920. The population jumped from 69,000 to 209,000 people, and that was largely due to the growth in the rubber industry. And the city had a ton of infrastructure problems. They didn't have enough hospital beds. They didn't have the utilities. They didn't even have enough houses for people to stay in. So F.A. really jumped in and said, well, we have to solve these problems because and he said this multiple times in letters, newspaper articles, that for himself to be a success, Akron had to succeed as well, that it was really an all-for-one proposition, and that people, he wasn't just in it for himself. He wasn't in it to kind of make money and forget the workers. He knew that he wanted all of Akron to be successful. Everyone deserved a good education. Everyone deserved a home to call their own. Everyone deserved green space, a well-paying job. And so these were values he really embodied and pushed out into the community. And that's where he put his time and energy over the 40 years that we lived here at Stan Hywet, that he lived here. So he passed away in 55, and we became a museum in 1957 and have been ever since, open to the public for tours and public programs. So as I mentioned, I'm in the tower. So one thing that's really unique about Stan Hywet being built in the early teens, it was very technologically advanced for its time. It has a lot of features which many American homes didn't have. It actually has 3 elevators in the house, 2 of which are hand-pulled. We have a wood elevator on the south side, which we'll walk by in a little bit, and then we have a trunk elevator on the north wing, and then we have 1 electric elevator. So here is our passenger elevator, and this would have been used by guests and families, and I'll let Mike get in a little closer so you don't have to look at me the whole time. And so we still actually use it today. It's still something that we have serviced, but it tends to stick, so we usually just move objects, not people, in it very often. But it is a unique feature of Stan Hywet. And then if we continue into the North Hall, another very interesting feature is here is an example of one of our central vacuum ports. So they had a central vacuum system installed at Stan Hywet. There are ports hidden throughout the house. Of course, as you can see, they wanted the house to be technologically advanced, but they didn't want to see the technology, just like we like to hide our TV cords and things like that, hide our microwaves behind cupboards. So, but it was spaced all throughout the house. They had these big, heavy rubber hoses that they used. They were actually so heavy, vacuuming in those years was considered a job for male domestic staff. It was too arduous for women to do. And so they would have to haul these big tubes around to do all the vacuuming in the house. But in 1921, Hoover invented the upright vacuum in Canton, and they abandoned this system. And then it turned to being a woman's job. So, and then Tyler, we're going to step into the Great Hall. So this was the family's living room. And as I mentioned before, Christmas was the major holiday celebrated here at Stan Hywet. They would have all of their children, and eventually they had 22 grandchildren, as well as FA's siblings and their children and grandchildren as well. So this was really the main gathering place. They always had 1 large tree. It could be anywhere from about the size of this one that we have here up to 25 feet. The Seiberlings originally owned over 1,500 acres of property. You all being familiar with Akron, their land extended all the way to West Market Street where the Summit Mall is, and then continued in the Fairlawn Heights area. That was all originally Seiberling land. It went as far as Smith Road, where the FA Nature Realm is right now, and then all of what is now Sand Run Park. So that was all part of the original plot of Stan Hywet. So they'd cut a large pine tree down from somewhere on their property and haul it in, have it decorated. Decorations back then were much simpler in the 19-teens. They would have the large tree. They'd actually do kind of paper chains, tinsel, glass ornaments, and then they might just have some fresh greenery here and there, but kind of covering every surface as we do in our own homes, or we do here now at Stan Hywet. They would have considered way over the top. They usually would just have a tree here, and then sometimes they'd have some decorations in the music room as well. So everyone would gather here. A key feature of the Seiberling Christmas celebration would be that Santa would arrive, and this was usually the job of an older male relative. Willard, their middle son, often took this role, but some of their other sons or cousins would do it as well. And he would, there was one Christmas where he talks about rappelling down off the minstrel's balcony by a rope, and I think after doing it one time, he decided he never wanted to do that again. But Santa would make his entry, and he'd have a bag full of presents. The catch for the Seiberling grandchildren was that before you could get your present from Santa, you had to perform a trick. So you could sing a song, play an instrument, do some kind of acrobatic feat. If you were very, very young, you could just bow or curtsy, but Santa needed to be entertained. And in exchange for that entertainment, he would then give you his present, your present. So they would do that. And then we'll just head into the dining room. The next stop would be the dining room. And I'll just step in. So I mentioned that their gatherings got quite large in the later years. So this room could seat up to 40 people. In addition to Christmas celebrations, as I mentioned, they often entertained. Those were often kind of community-based events that they hosted here. They also, 3 of their children got married here at Stan Hywet, their oldest son, Fred, and both their daughters, Irene and Virginia. So we have photos of their wedding reception parties in here as well. But they could set up the tables in a U shape, sit up to 40 people, adults. The children would eat in the breakfast room, which was across the hall, or even in the north hallway, which is just on the other side of this wall of the dining room. Effie and Gertrude always sat in the middle of the table across from each other. They considered that more friendly. They also were able to interact with more guests rather than kind of each being stuck at an end of the table away from each other. They had what we consider a very traditional Christmas dinner. They would have turkey, mashed potatoes, vegetables, that kind of thing. They always had kind of a nut and cheese course as well. They were very fond of eating ice cream. That was often a dessert here. They didn't seem to do pies back in those early decades. Around the top of the dining room, if you haven't been here, that is a painting of Canterbury Tales by a New Jersey artist, Robert Sewell, and that was commissioned. And that was actually installed after the family had moved into the house in 1916. But it's very fitting with our Tudor Revival home and decor here to have Chaucer's Canterbury Tales in the dining room. So just to talk a little bit about Deck the Hall. So Chloe, who is also on with me, I'm going to give her a very big shout out. She is the staff member here in the collections department that coordinates Deck the Hall. She's responsible each year for coming up with the concept and the theme. Yeah, put Chloe on camera. And so, and she works with all of our volunteers. We usually have to organize between 40 and 50 volunteers to come in and help us do all of this decorating. The collections department is 3 full-time and 2 part-time people, so we could not do this all alone. We very much are dependent and thankful to our volunteers. This is an example. We had Kern's Florist Company come in. They did the dining room, kitchen, and butler's pantry, so they did a whole suite of rooms for us in kind of this great snowman theme. But we plan Deck the Hall all year. We actually know what our themes will be for 5 years out. So next year, for example, we're doing Christmas movies. So you can come back. We were just talking before this about having a meeting this week because, of course, we can never stop planning Deck the Hall. Even when it's installed, we then immediately start talking about the next year. So kind of starting to conceptualize what movies do we want to talk about? How can we pull it off? What's possible, what's not possible. So it is a year-round process for the collections department, but it is such a successful program. It's become an institution in Northeast Ohio. So many families love to come here year after year and just have a wonderful experience. And just like the Siderlings, you know, this is not for us alone. And we're always so thankful to have the support of our Akron community and make these enjoyable experiences for everyone. So we're gonna travel down the hall now, check out the library. Oh, I will point out as we walk, I don't know if Mike got it, but you can see up there on the second floor, there's actually an interior window here in the Great Hall. We can't go up to the second floor. Our cord doesn't quite reach that far. But that's the master bedroom, and the master bedroom woodwork was purchased from England from a Tudor house that was being torn down. And it included a window, which they decided to incorporate into the architecture of the house. So they called that Gertrude's chaperone window. The idea being that if the children were down here, maybe had a significant other over for a visit or friends, she could keep an eye on things from the second floor. I think it was really tongue-in-cheek. I don't really think it was ever used that way because Gertrude was a night owl, so most likely she was kind of down here hanging out where the action was anyway. The Great Hall was considered the family living room. This is where they spent most of their time in the evenings, reading books. They loved to listen to the radio. We have a radio there on the far table. F.A. thought radio was the greatest invention of his lifetime. He talked about it even more than the telephone because he was so dazzled that you could turn the dial and hear a radio station in Seattle, Washington, or Montreal, Canada, and that was just completely mind-blowing to him. So circling back to technology, this is a private phone booth. There are around 30 phone extensions on the property of Stan Hywet, most of them being in the manor house, but all of the service buildings also had phones. So this is, of course, a private phone booth. It was ventilated if you wanted to smoke, as most people were smokers back in the early decades of the 20th century. We also, as you see, have 2 candlestick phones here, and that's very intentional. When Stan Hywet was being built, there were 2 different phone companies in Akron. One was called the People's Phone Company, and the other one, I can never remember the name. But they were competing phone companies, and so if you signed up on the People's Phone Company, you could only call other people that were registered on the People's Phone Company. The wires literally didn't cross. So this was unacceptable to FA. He had to be able to call everybody, and everybody had to be able to call him. So in specific spots in the Manor House, the phone booth being one, his office being the other, we have both phone lines being run into the house so that you had all the options. They were only competing phone companies until the early 1920s, and then they merged, and the two lines weren't. Then you could talk to everybody at that point. And now we're in the library, and I'll just step in a little bit. Yeah, Mike, don't go too far. So this is the library. This is a lot of people's favorite room in the house. It was one of the Cyberlings' favorite room in the house. F.A., when he, later years, he actually became bedridden. He wasn't able to walk when his health declined. Really the last 5 years of his life. He passed away at the age of 95. So they actually moved him down here to the library because this was his favorite space. This is where he wanted to be. So this kind of became his one-bedroom apartment where he had a bed but could also sit and people could come and talk to him and keep him company. And so this, of all the rooms, was the one he chose to kind of spend the last years of his life in. The Cyberlings were huge readers. We have books everywhere, thousands of books. I don't even know when they lived here as a family where they put them all because half of the book collection we have is in storage. So there just must have been, I picture stacks of books everywhere. F.A. loved nonfiction. He thought fiction was a waste of time. He loved to read biographies. He was a big fan of Abraham Lincoln, so we have several sets of Lincoln biographies in our collection. Many of the other families, though, did like fiction, so we, of course, have Dickens and all of those classic novels that you think of were read by the family. What else can we say about the library? Oh, the portrait in the back, I don't know if Mike can get a picture of that, is their oldest son, Fred Cyberling. He served in World War I. He first was in the National Guard stationed on the Mexican-Texas border, helping with the border skirmish down there, and then enlisted in the Army. He was actually sent to France, but he never saw action. He writes letters talking about how he just sat in a chateau all day and didn't get to fire his gun and how bored he was. So, but they did have a portrait commissioned of him in his military uniform before he left to go over to France. Fred married Henrietta Cyberling. Her portrait is also in the house. We won't get to see it though because it's up on the second floor, but many of you might be familiar with her. She is a very well-known member of the Cyberling family. She is credited with being one of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that first meeting between Dr. Bob and Bill W. took place in our Gate Lodge building, which is down near the front gate. And it's a wonderful story. I won't go into it now. But if you haven't ever come and visited the Gate Lodge, we actually just redid the exhibit down there. It had originally opened in 2005. So 15 years later, it needed kind of some refreshing. We had also done a lot more research into Henrietta's life and learned how much more involved she was in those early formative years of AA. So we wanted to kind of showcase that story, give her a little bit more credit than she had kind of been given in the annuals of AA history. So we have a new exhibit down there. It's actually an immersive experience. You can sit on all the furniture, open her magazines and books. So we really tried to make it something where you felt like you were kind of part of that story. So again, I'm personally very fond of it. So, but hopefully you'll come back if you haven't already to see it when we reopen April 1st. So we're headed down the linen-fold hallway. I mentioned, here's one of our hand-pulled elevators. Here's our wood elevator. You can see there are about 25 fireplaces in Stan Hywet. Most of the principal entertaining rooms and bedrooms had fireplaces. They all worked when the family moved in. They were not the central source of heat, though. They were kind of more for atmosphere or decorative. They did have a boiler room, two boilers actually, one being coal and one being gas. When Stan Hywet was originally built, this wasn't part of the city of Akron. The city line ended where the Portage Country Club is at Twin Oaks Road. So this was considered Portage Township. So FA actually had to pay to run all the utilities and connect to the city of Akron. So he ran the water line, the electric lines, the gas lines, all of that. But he did install a coal boiler as a backup in case the gas were to ever go off. This is called the linen-fold hallway. I might have said that already. But as you can see, it's because of the design on the woodwork. They went to England 2 times when they were conceiving and creating Stan Hywet. The first trip in 1912, they took their architect, Charles Snyder. He's a Cleveland-based architect. And they went to 20 different manor homes and kind of finalized their design. They knew they wanted a Tudor Revival home. Charles Snyder was an expert in Tudor Revival architecture. So they kind of went around and they largely based the design of Stan Hywet on 3 English manor homes, Ockwells Manor, Compton Wynne Yates, and Haddon Hall. And Haddon Hall is actually a public museum in England if you ever have the chance to go and see it. And I've heard from volunteers and other people that have gone that they kind of have this deja vu experience, like they're walking through Stan Hywet Hall, because some of the details are so identical to what we have here. They did hire 2 English carvers that came and worked exclusively on Stan Hywet for 2 years. So they had most of the wood rough cut in Rochester, New York. That was where the company that they'd hired to do a lot of the woodwork had their wood factory. And then it was sent here, and the 2 carvers would work to get all of the detail work done. Charles Steiner, the architect, was, meticulous is an understatement. He was so obsessed with getting every detail perfect for Stan Hywet. He drew life-size cartoons of every piece of carving. So everything you see, we actually still have, in many cases, the original tissue paper or onion skin that he had drawn out in real size, all of these details, because many of these carvers could not read or write. They were immigrants coming from England and other countries, so the easiest way to tell them what to do was to hand them a piece of paper and say, make this. So we have all of these drawings that he did to make sure that everything was proportional and looked exactly as he wanted it to. So we have our lovely round room behind us with our floating Christmas tree. All credit goes to Chloe for the concept on that. The round room this was, as you were a guest of Stan, you were coming to an event in the music room. F.A. and Gertrude would stand in the middle of the round room and greet you there. And as you can see, there is a domed ceiling, and that's very intentional. It creates kind of a sound cone in there. So if you stand in the middle and have a conversation with the person standing next to you, the sound is concentrated to the center of the room. So if there's music playing in the music room or a lot of crowd noise, you don't have to shout. So it was this kind of acoustical effect that was created by that dome ceiling. It's really cool to experience. So we'll head into the west porch. In this we have Santa's workshop with all the little elves hard at work, and some of course are goofing off and having a snowball fight over here in one corner. So the west porch is all done in arts and crafts tile. Part of the Cyberlings' plan for the house was that when they moved in, they wanted it to look old right away. They wanted it to look aged. They didn't want it, and when you go to Tudor homes in England, many of them are hundreds of years old. Multiple generations of family have lived in them. And so as decorative styles change, they add on wings to the house, and you kind of move from different stylistic periods as you go from room to room. So the Cyberlings wanted to recreate that effect here. So you may have noticed as we've gone into the library, now the west porch, they look very different from each other, and that was intentional. So this is all arts and crafts tile work in here. They hired the Pewabic Pottery Company in Detroit, Michigan. They're still in business today to install all of the tile work here. They also created the fountain behind us, which depicts a scene from a British poem by a man named Robert Southey, The Well of St. Keen. And I'll just tell you the story very quickly. So the story is that the saint is presiding over a wedding ceremony, and whoever she passes the cup of water to first will be the head of the household. So the man who's blocked by our mask-wearing elf, but he's smiling, has a huge smile on his face, very confident. He's reaching for the cup, like, I'm going to get it, I'm the man. But the saint's eyes look towards the woman, and F.A. loved this poem. He loved to tell guests about it when they visited Stan Hywet, and he was kind of giving them the tour, because he really acknowledged that he and Gertrude had a partnership, that they were equal in the success of their family, of his business, and of Stan Hywet Hall. Gertrude had to manage the domestic staff here, almost running her own small business, coordinate all of the entertaining, as well as raising the 6 children, managing kind of all of the family stuff. So he really made sure that everyone knew that he knew what an important partner she was in their success. And we'll head into the music room for the last bit. And we'll take some questions. If anyone has questions, you can go ahead and throw them into the chat at any time. Okay. So this is the music room, the largest room in Stan Hywet, 2,700 square feet. On the early conceptual drawings of the house, this room gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So obviously Gertrude kept thinking, well, maybe a little more space. Maybe we need a stage. Maybe we need this, all speculation. But obviously their kind of thought about the room and use of the room expanded as the house was being developed. Gertrude, you know, FA is known for being a very accomplished and successful businessman. Gertrude was equally as accomplished and successful. She was an educated woman. I think if she were alive today, she could have been running her own business or, you know, having her own, you know, being kind of more than considered a housewife in theory back then. But she was very philanthropic. She had a singing career. She was a trained contralto opera singer. She performed regionally around Cleveland and Akron. She also, her most notable singing performance was in 1910 at the White House for a state dinner with President Taft and invited guests. She was a founding member of the Akron chapter of the Tuesday Music Club, which is still an active organization today. She got to be really well known, first, of course, starting out regionally for her singing abilities, but also kind of her passion for music, music appreciation and music education. She was always finding young people who were interested in having a music career, sponsoring them, doing all that she could to kind of further their endeavor, get them to New York so they could kind of get training and have an opportunity to, you know, make it big on the big stage. So she got to be known nationally. So in 1919, she was actually elected president of the National Federation of Music Clubs, which was a national organization that had state chapters and then also regional chapters, but was very focused on, again, pushing the idea of music education and music appreciation. And this was really focused mostly on classical and operatic music. That was seen as the more preferred type of music as opposed to jazz in the 1920s. That was kind of low-class music. But the idea that if you could learn to appreciate this music, it was uplifting, it was educational for you. There were like a lot of benefits that they put forward as to why people should learn how to do this or learn how to appreciate it. So Gertrude got to know composers, musicians, singers, and as many of them were touring the country, performing, they would stop here in Akron and they'd be guests at Stan Hywet Hall. They performed down at the Akron Armory or at Goodyear Hall and be guests. This was also the site of many, many community parties, events, fundraisers. We have a letter that talks about a bridge tournament that they threw, I want to say in the early 1930s, and they had over 800 women here playing bridge. They literally had tables on the first and second floor. So it was kind of a progressive bridge tournament that probably went on all day, but FA writes kind of a funny letter talking about all these women all over the house when he got home that day. The key feature, one of the key features is our organ, the Aeolian Organ. It is original to the house, installed in 1915. It's a Chicago-based organ company. Both FA and Gertrude knew how to play the organ. FA had some kind of musical talent in his own right, but didn't really pursue it to the same extent that Gertrude did because of his business dealings, his commitment to Goodyear. But it still works today. We had it restored in 2009, and originally you could play it manually. You could still play it manually today. And then historically they'd have these rolls. There would have been a component you could insert a roll, and that would tell the organ to play. But when they restored it in 2009, they actually created this digital component. It's almost a computer that tells the organ to play. So it's not a CD that you're hearing. You're actually hearing the blower push air into the pipes, and you're hearing the song come out of the organ. So we'll play a little bit for you. Let me go to a Christmas song, because this is the Christmas meeting. 70. Okay, we'll just play a couple minutes. But the pipe chambers are located on either side of the stage at the back of the room. So there's a little sleigh bells for you. So this was also a space that was used by the family. So for Christmas gatherings, to kind of circle back to that thread of the program, it would, after lunch, the big meal at lunchtime, they would all come in here for some entertainment. And the entertainment that the family enjoyed at Christmas time was that the grandchildren would get together ahead of time and rehearse some kind of play. The most famous performance being around 1940, the grandchildren did a Dickens Christmas Carol. So Gertrude would help paint the sets. They'd have costumes for all the kids, rehearse lines. They'd pull furniture from around the house to kind of set the stage. So it got to be pretty elaborate, especially as the grandchildren got older and were a little bit more capable of pulling off a show. But it was something they all enjoyed. Sometimes certain family members would get together and put on a play for the other family members. They would kind of switch off years. This year we'll do the show, next year you do the show. But it was something that the grandchildren all very fondly remember and had a good time doing. So,
we have some questions.
Oh good, we have some questions.
Yes, so somebody wants to know the updates that were recently done in the music room.
Oh sure, so starting in 2015, Stan Hywet successfully completed a $6 million capital campaign. It was for multiple projects throughout the property, but one of those was $1 million was designated for the Manor House to restore 15 spaces. So the idea was to be able to interpret these rooms, make sure they were as close to their 1915 appearance as possible. So the music room was one of the spaces that was restored. I want to say it was completed around 2017, 2018. They all start to merge together at this point. We're coming to the tail end. We just have one room left to complete, Virginia's bedroom on the second floor, and in 2021, we'll conclude the restoration process. And our theme for next year, if you come for the regular season, we'll be showcasing all these restoration changes. So more reason to come back. But yes, in the music room, as with a lot of the rooms that we worked with as part of this restoration project, fabrics were where a lot of the cost and time went. So the curtains that were up in the music room before were very worn out. Silk only lasts about 30 to 40 years, and then it starts to shatter and wear. And these curtains, of course, are very heavy because they're so long. So we went back and worked with Scalamandre, which is a fabric house in New York City, and they recreated the original 1915 material for us, as well as creating the trim as well based on our original historic samples. We're very fortunate in the foundation era, the early museum years. It was all entirely a volunteer-based organization, but these women really had foresight. They saved everything. If they made a change in a room, if they decided these curtains look shabby, we should put up new ones, they would save those original 1915 historic pieces. Sometimes a whole curtain panel, sometimes just a fragment, but we have this amazing collection in a storage room here at the Manor House where we have fabric samples from all of the rooms, and these were a fantastic resource for figuring out what the rooms really did look like in 1915, because of course we have photographs, but they're black and white. So curtains were a big part of it. We had the sconces around the room, all restored. We worked with Whitney Stained Glass in Cleveland. Each sconce has 430 crystals on it. They all had, over time, different crystals had kind of fallen off, so they all looked a little different. So we had a box of loose crystals that had been saved over the years. They were able to return all those crystals. We're missing very few of the original crystals, which is great. And then we had the sconce shades, the fabric custom made and the trim custom made to match the original, again, 1915 shades that the Cyberlings would have picked out. We had many key pieces restored. We work with the ICA, which is a conservation lab in Cleveland. They're a phenomenal partner. They redid all 3 of our lampshades, so they are, again, identical replicas of the 1915 lampshades. This black desk right there received some conservation treatment. We had several chairs in here reupholstered as well. So some things, though, you know, we don't touch because we don't necessarily want it to look like showroom new decorative space. So some things like those tapestry chairs and settees and carpets were left. That lends a lot of nice historical authenticity to the space as well, because we want to interpret, not decorate. Chloe?
Somebody wants to know if that's our original organ and how much maintenance does it take?
Yes, it is our original organ. So it is serviced once a year. We have it tuned. We use Shantz Organ Company in Orville, Ohio. They actually were the ones that did the restoration in 2009, and we have something like 2,500 pipes, 2,400 pipes, and they range from, you know, like this big around to Q-tip size almost. So they pulled every pipe. We have photos out of the pipe chambers in the back, and all the furniture was cleared out of this room. They had sheets down. They take every pipe out, clean every pipe, put everything back, replace anything that was broken. They, of course, had to update the electrical, because that dated to 1915. So it was a huge restoration, but it allows us to continue to enjoy the organ today. Anything else?
What does it cost to run and manage Stan Hywet?
Oh, so our budget is a little over $5 million a year. And so we get that funding from a bunch of different sources. Of course, we have tours, membership. We do a lot of fundraising, and appeals to our donors and members. Public programs is a huge part of our budget every year, making us successful. We also have a very successful rentals department. I'm sure everyone has been to a wedding at Stan Hywet. So we have all these different pieces of the pie that help make the institution a success and also an asset to the community, because we want to continue to kind of grow as an organization but give back at the same time. So I can tell you about the electric bill in this house is kind of an interesting story. Right when I started here in March of 2014, they had been working on a grant to get all new LED light bulbs in the manor house, because when I started, most of the light fixtures didn't have shades on them because the incandescent bulbs would get so hot, they were actually scorching the lining of a lot of the sconce shades around the house. So they'd all been removed just to prevent any kind of fire issues. But we had a sponsor come in and give us, several thousand LED light bulbs. So we changed all of the light bulbs in the manor house. We were able to put all of our shades and sconce shades back on. And our light bill.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Sorry about that.
Julie, if you want to.
We'll just go low key here. How are we, everyone? So our laptop battery died. So of course, lovely technology issues. Were there any other questions?
Somebody wanted to know if things that we have ever get sold off.
Oh, things that we have ever get sold off. The answer is no. I mean, we're very fortunate. Excuse me. We have 95% of the original materials that the Cyberlings left here. So they turned over everything to the foundation when it was formed in 1957. And when you come, you're actually seeing much of the furniture as it was when the Cyberlings lived in the house. So that is, that's very special. This is the third historic house that I've worked in, and that's a very unique situation. So we really treasure everything that we do have. There are the rare occasions where maybe something has been destroyed, then we kind of get rid of it as a way because it's just worn out. But those are usually small items, maybe made of like early plastics, of materials that don't last. But for all intents purposes, anything that's original to the house, we try to preserve and keep here at the house. And I don't know if I can see the chat on her phone. Oh, here we go, chat. Oh, and so some people missed about the electric. So yeah, sorry, our laptop died. Hooray for technology. So, but the electric, we replaced all of our bulbs with LED bulbs. So now our electric bill in the manor house, which is the largest house on property, largest building on property, is the cheapest electric wise because we're all LED, which is really exciting. So I don't see any other questions coming through on the chat, and we're almost at the end of the meeting. So should I just turn it back over to the Rotary? Thank you so much, everyone. We had a great time.
Thank you very much. You gave a great tour, and for the first time doing this live,
yes,
I think you're ringers. I think you guys, you got to take this on the road. I would imagine a lot of people would like this. Thank you, everybody, and have a happy holiday.
You're welcome. Same to everyone at Rotary. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we'll go back to our team and see if I have any late entries. Well, the top winner for unique, 2 of the 3 judges have weighed in. So there's already 2 votes for Cheryl. So even if the other judge uses something different, that doesn't happen. Tackiest is mixed. So I'm going to have to wait until the 3rd judge weighs in. In the running is Steve and Wanda, and we'll see what the 3rd one is, if it's a tiebreaker or if it's a 3-way tie. And the classiest is yours truly. So my dad's bow tie bought me a Starbucks gift card that I will buy. So thank you all for joining us today. We will make the official exit, but you're welcome to stick around. And if you've tried any of those mocktails that Katie sent us, I did try the white martini on Saturday night. Was a dessert for my family, and we think it's a do again. So happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and all the other great holidays that Jack said. And I will close this out here. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.